New generation. Okay, we jump into today's Meimor HaDor, and if you have the sheets, it goes 1, 2, 3. So this is the first.
Oh.
Then there's second here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there we go. And basically, what we're talking about is how our generation is a transitional generation. Rav Kook started saying this in his days. Welcome. Get the sheets over there, just getting rolling. So what we started to say, what we began last week and a few weeks ago, is first Rav Kook started with the pain of the generation. Then last week we began transitioning from pain to healing and holding space for both. And what we began is talking about how our generation is a transitional generation. It's a generation that is transitioning from old systems to new systems. It's a generation that's transitioning from a new neshama is coming down, a new ore, a higher, more refined ore. And we don't have the right vessels in order to receive that light. So I was thinking, like, what does this mean? It's like, it's so much like our generation, obviously, and this began in Rav Kook's generation. It's like the world around them is in ruins, but our souls have risen, you know? And like the mismatch is visible wherever you look. It's like we outgrew the systems that contain us, but haven't been able to develop new ones to contain us, you know? So the systems of old, the things that held the communities together, they're dissolving rapidly, you know? But yet new systems, new paradigms, new kalim, new vessels in order to hold the new thing that's happening in this world hasn't been developed yet, you know? So we're in transition. It's like I think about, like, you know, for you know, some of my clients, they consider themselves ex-Hasidim. You know, they grew up in heavy Hasidic communities in Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz, and now they're you know, dating non-Jews or living their lives however it would be, you know, and they're in tremendous amount of pain. At the same time, they love singing Zmiros and Yiddish songs, you know, and they like connecting spiritually to people, and they like the ore of it, you know, but everything else they don't like, you know, because there's a new neshama that's come down, and the constructs of doing things didn't hold them in that way. So the ruchnius, the spiritual aspects, they like, because our souls are very refined. But the religious aspects, the crushing pressure that people feel from it, doesn't hold them, right? But of course you have to be careful over here, because I'm not advocating to not keep halacha or anything like that, you know? But what we are just developing what Rav Kook was already seeing in his generation, you know? In his generation, this began to develop. It's like Israeli society itself. I was thinking, like, Israeli culture, you know? It's like so disrespectful, the irrelevance, the politics here are nasty, right? But Israelis have like a deep moral clarity, and they're heroic, you know? And they're willing, you know, and they have children, and they get married, you know? So it's like you see these two things, like the irreverence of the breaking of the boundaries and the aggressiveness and the toughness, but the soft heartness, the ones that run directly into a terrorist attack. Like my daughter said, she was in a fake pigua. It wasn't a real one, you know, it's going back in the summer. And there was a loud sound, and all the issues in Machane Yehuda. And she said, like people were running away, like, running that way. And you saw people everyone, like all the older, like they all just took out their guns and were just walking like this, you know, like running inwards, posed position, you know. It was fake, nothing happened in the end, you know. But it's like that the culture itself mimics in many ways what Rav Kook was talking about, you know. And of course he was talking then about the old yishuv and the new yishuv, you know. But you see this strange thing play out over and over again. So on one hand, there's like a tremendous pain, there's this grief, there's this trauma, right? A generation stuck in between worlds, right? Of wanting the ruchnius, but yet this dichotomy, this paradox, this opposite thing that's taking place. So we're going to jump right in. The first paragraph over here is Muzar. We started last week, but we stopped in the middle of the paragraph. Muzar, over here, everyone can see? Okay. I'm going to read the first few sentences quicker because we did them last week, and we're going to continue to use it as a runner. Muzar hu ador is strange. I think there's some Netflix things, the stranger people, something strange. Stranger things, sci-fi. Muzar hu ador hazeh, right? Strange is this generation. If I could tell you how many Rosh Yeshiva look at my WhatsApp status, it's like funny, like, strange. It's strange, like Rosh Yeshiva sitting there, like on their WhatsApp statuses, like looking, or like posting on Instagram, and like it's strange, it's odd, I mean, like, I'm not criticizing them, but that's where our generation is, like. There's a certain Rosh Yeshiva I meet who I'm very close with. Every time I see him, he's like, break out I'm not going to do it in bread, I don't want to say who he is, but every time he says, Shaya, where's the camera? Break it out, put it on the status, It's like strange, but that's where the generation is, Muzar hu ador zeh, strange, shovav hu, wild, pariahs, aval gam na'ale v'naseh, but we're also elevated. Notzim min ha'cheshbon es hayechidim hagisim, Hagasim shelakhu lahem mesurach hapratzim lemasve laolu al yado alilo shel gezel v'chamasve kol nivla. Okay, we'll stop and translate. We're going to exclude from this individuals that are thick, who have taken from themselves the spirit of breaking things as a mask that definitely causes about them stealing and chaos and denigrated things. That we're excluding. Those are the exceptions to the rule. Nimsa ki ma'avar mizeh chutzpah yazgi. We find actually a tremendous amount of disrespect. Ein haben misyayish ma'av. The children, they don't get embarrassed in front of their parents. Narim b'nei zakim yalbinu. And the young children, they embarrass. And the lads, they embarrass. They whiten the faces of their elder, right? V'lu'um hazeh, in contrast to this, what do we have? Rigshei chesed hayosher, hamishpach v'achemla olum gabrim. We have feelings of kindness and moral clarity and judgment and compassion. It's getting stronger. Hakol chamadi v'adili poritz v'oleh. The force of science and idealism is starting to break through, and it's starting to rise. Again, we spoke about these few sentences last week. Okay, Chelek gadol mehador tza'ir. But there's a large part of the younger generation that doesn't want, they're not concerned about the status quo and the way that they were raised, the way that they were habituated to do things. It's not because of the darkness of their soul. It's not because they were lowered from their standards. They didn't lower their standards. Shahachok v'hamishpat ondem alav b'deya hamonit haragila, right? Because the regular status quo stands in front of them as just a regular thing. Ki im mipnei she'ala ad hamakom shelefi osa ad sivyon hashiur shehurgo bo ko sheyabid al yado al chok v'hamishpat. Because they don't want the regular thing, because because their souls have already risen up to a very high place. Because, and then the way and the status quo that they were raised in, they take a look at, and they begin to, and they look at it, al mesores v'amuna b'klal, and they look at tradition and faith, al kol tahor v'kadosh, and anything that's pure and holy, al kol emes gedula nitzchis v'lohis asher b'mosagim, and everything that is right and justice and eternal, right? They look at all these things, he's going to say, right? Their souls have risen, and they throw off the status quo. They don't want the way things are. So why do they throw off all these things that are upright and justice, the traditional way? It's like one of these one long run-on sentences. No, not because of, and only because of, and not because of, and only. Right? It's like long. Where do you put the period? Mipnei miyut ha'avoda b'talmudim. Right? So the reason is not because they're bums. It's not because they're taivas. It's not because they've lowered themselves. It's because of mipnei miyut ha'avoda b'talmudim. Shel yesodei haregesh v'hadas shebemarchev haTorah. It's because they have not been taught and educated properly the proper foundations of merging together feeling and intellect within the Torah context, right? And he's going to develop what this means, right? It's not that they don't want to do, is that we failed to teach them a Torah that applies to their life, that is both emotionally stimulating and intellectually stimulating. To merge both the feeling and the mind, the das, together. So it's not because they're so low, they want to break the status quo. It's precisely because they're so high, and we failed to teach them emunah. Proper, and Rav Kook again is saying this about his generation, Achad Ha'am and Berlin and all the early Zionists, right? This is the reread, this is what he's talking about specifically, right? Is that the reason why the early Zionists throw off the Torah is because we failed them. And we didn't properly teach them the foundations of emunah. And because we failed them to teach on their level, so now they said, this is what the Torah is. We want geula, right? It's like they say, like one of the big feelings, I think, that I definitely felt, and many people feel after October 7th, it's like in the religious failed the secular, like if it's on our job as the bearers of das and the bearers of wisdom and the light of Hashem to go out and teach Torah in a way that feels good, in a way that's both intellectually and emotional stimulating, that speaks to a new generation. And in the absence of that, what do? You go to Nova, right? So there's a feeling that these are the people that got killed for being part of Am Yisrael, in the Nova Festival, and all the tragedies that happened and ensued on that day, So there's a feeling of, well, they got killed just for being Jewish, and they weren't religious. They were totally, there were all sorts of crazy things going on in Nova, but yet they were still killed for being Jewish, and we failed them. It wasn't that they failed us. Right? In any relationship, like I always say this in marriage counseling, we have Mike's an expert over here, but I always think like it's on the healthier person, it's on the healthier person to be the bigger, to carry it and to do what they need to do. It's not on the weaker person, right? So Rav Kook is saying that his generation, and the old Yishuv, again, he's taking a swipe at both, right? So this is how he does it. It's like so gray. It's so not like black and white. Like it's not binary the way in Rav Kook's world, So Rav Kook is saying the old Yishuv, he failed them because we didn't teach them a Torah of emunah. We didn't teach them a Torah that is both emotionally and intellectually stimulating. And he brings this pasuk, Huam zahav v'soneh, I lost the place. Huam zahav, gold got dimmed, v'soneh hakesem hatov, and they hated the hakesem hatov. They hated the imprint of that, the stain of that. Meaning to say, like things that were valuable became not valuable. Until everything appeared to the generation that everything was lower, became not worth it. But at the same time, their souls got raised. Hatsaros markehu, the pain and infliction. The infliction, Rav Kook spoke about this at length. We're going to see this later in the Meimor, right? That gullus itself is the cleansing thing. So pain and suffering cleanse their souls. Shatafahu, rinse them out. Notnu lo leiv matana, and gave them a new heart. Umoach hoga, and a good mind. Mechadesh, with renewal. Mechadash, from anew. The af, and they could fly. V'lo yuchol la'amu b'shafal, and they're not able to stand in a low, denigrated place, right? So as gullus is cleaning them, and they're suffering from tsaras, right? That's cleaning out their souls. Then all of a sudden there is a jump in the neshamas of Yisrael, and there is a jump in the neshamas Yisrael, and then they're starting to hear the Torah that's being taught, and they say, "This isn't for us. This is ridiculous. I want something. I want something that's going to fill the world with the knowledge of God, like the waters that cover the earth. I don't want something that is just tie this before tie that." Right? That's important too. Rav Kook says in other places we need to have not just balei halachot and not just balei agadot. We need people that teach both together, both the panemius, the nister, and the nigla together. Right? As the Morinayim says, V'tandu v'lemesav armalu, 2 was better than 1, meaning to say it's better to take nigla and nister together than just to learn nigla or nister by itself, right? So Rav Kook synthesizes these things, right? So what you find is a transitional generation, a generation that is completely in between worlds. Because the old structures and the old methodologies of doing things, like we started saying, they outgrew it. The Pashat outgrew it. It's amazing, right? Isn't it amazing? Knafayim asalo ruchom umroimim yamriya, right? They got wings umroimim yamriya, and they want to fly to the high. Below the shamlo natnu lo adayin es chefzo, and over there though they weren't able to find it. Now listen to what Rav Kook says in the last sentence of this paragraph. It's just like so unbelievable. Like it's like nevuah, you know? It's like mamish prophecy, like what he says. It's like you would never think. Like first of all, you wouldn't think what he's saying, you know. Now, as it is, what we're learning. But listen to what he says over here. Okay, right? It's like this in between worlds, you know. I was looking up like a good word for in between worlds is liminal. Apparently, that's a word, liminality. Like you're stuck in between worlds. Not the Illuminati. The liminal. Liminal is like nishta here, nishta there. Like you're floating in between, right? You want to be high, but you can't really. So you're like someplace in between. Okay, whatever. It's a new English word I learned. Okay, then that's what he says over here, right? Ma'al Yerushalayim de lamata, on the Yerushalayim that's below, hachreva v'hashomama v'hamushpelet ad shol tachtia, right? On the ruins of Yerushalayim shel Matah, the Yerushalayim below, that was desolate and lowered and destroyed, his'aleh, they want to raise up. Yerushalayim shel Lamala lo yuchuli kanes, but Yerushalayim from above, they still can't enter. Ki ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu nichnas b'Yerushalayim shel Lamala ad she'yikanes b'Yerushalayim shel Matah. Right, that's a Gemara in Tainus, Daf Hey. Because Hashem can't enter, Hashem does not enter the Yerushalayim above until we're able to enter the Yerushalayim below. Mikdash Melech Ir Melucha Kumitzi Mitoch Afecha. The Mikdash Melech Ir Melucha, the holiness of the king in the king's city, Kumitzi Mitoch Afecha. They get up and arise from the confusion, from the upheaval. Rav lach sheves be'emek habacha, and increase is enough the valley of tears. His oiriri, wake up, arouse ourselves. Kiba orech kumi ori, right? Because the time has come to see the light. Uri shir daberi, right? We say these words, we know these words, right? We sing them in Lechadodi. Uri shir daberi, right? Wake up to the spoken song. Kvod Hashem alayich negla, and the light of Hashem will be revealed upon you, right? It's so beautiful the way he talks about this, right? That the new generation, they're building on top of the ruins of the old generation, of the Yerushalayim shel Matah that was destroyed and put in rubbles and in shambles, but yet they don't have the proper vessels, and they just want to go to Yerushalayim shel Mala, but they don't have the vessels to contain that light, right? So they want so much out of life, but yet they don't have the constructs and the vessels in order to Yerushalayim shel Mala. Like I was thinking, like someone I'm working with recently told me, he said, if I wasn't married and I was able to do whatever I want and I had money and I didn't have children, I would just go and sit in Meiron by Rabbi Shimon all day long. And I'd spend he's young, he's, relatively young, He says, I would just sit in Meiron by Rabbi Shimon all day long. That's all I would do. I don't want to deal with anything anymore, I just want to plant myself there. He goes, I'll collect tzedakah from people that come. I'll live simply. It's not so expensive in Meiron or in the surrounding areas. And I would just sit there, and bask in Rabbi Shimon's light, right? He wants to build a life built on the Yerushalayim shel Matah, which is destroyed because his life is in shambles. But he also is not able to enter the Yerushalayim shel Mala because there's not a proper way in order to do that, right? So you see this generation that's not mature enough is mature enough to realize that they want something new, that they're idealistic, that they want they want to do great things. On the other hand, they're not mature enough in order to use the vessels and the kalim in order to get to that place, right? It's like spiritual bypassing. Like, I'm just going to look at ruchnius, and I'm not going to actually deal with the personal issues in my life, I'm just going to talk about high and holy things, right? But I'm not going to actually take a look in the details of my life or do anything that I need in order to get my life together, because I just, another friend of mine told me recently, he told me like that was like one of his big awakenings. Like he realized, he said in his own lashon, he said, I'm an or chaser. I'm a light chaser, He's like, and working is very hard for me. He has a proper parnas, and he does. He's like, but it's the hardest thing for me, He's like, because I just want or. And he had to go through a whole process of learning how to implement what it is that he's learning, to integrate the pieces of or that he was learning into his life, So it's like a generation that needs integration, not just needs or. Right? And this is what we were saying, it's like a new language, a new thing. I started with like young adults who leave the community, but they're still hungry for spirituality. Young adults who want very high things, and they say, forget it, I don't want this. You can't contain me. So there's a new language being born, a language of emotion, a language of experience, a language of authenticity, a language of connection, right? And it's amazing how Rav Kook, he's going to give solutions in a moment, But it's like muzar, we're strange, It's like odd, And you're like, I don't get it. The guy just wants to learn Kabbalah all day long. You have to learn Gemara. You have to learn Shulchan Aruch. Right? You go back to these debates over here. It's like you want so much out of life. And Rav Kook is saying, and we failed them. We failed to meet the demands. So it's not that, a kid goes off the derech or a kid, whatever it is, It's not that they're low. It's not that they're it's because we failed in order to meet the needs of their soul. You know what I'm saying? And this is the entire generation. This is us, right? On one hand, we go to a good shiur on Rav Kook and we learn amazing things. On the other hand, then I'm looking at AliExpress watches for the next hour. We're wasting time, and reading the news. But then at the same time, we're learning Likutei Moharan. We're doing chesed, we're doing kindness, we're doing good things, and then, I get stuck in traffic and the guy's honking me. I'm like, why are you honking me? It's like we live in this, in flux. We live in this fragmented world, and then we're searching for inner wholeness, and we're like, do mitzvos all day long, and we learn, and then, then a person will read a self-help book, and that'll change their lives. You read Brene Brown, The Gift of Imperfection, or you'll read whatever other self-help book you like, and there's a lot out there, and you're like, wow, and then you're like, wait a minute, why am I getting it from Torah, And then we're going to other things in order to find the way that it's relevant in order to our lives. We're not able to find it in the Torah. But then, once we find it outside, we're able to bring it back into the camp and kosherify it. And we're able to say, when these ideas are filtered through the Jewish mind, it automatically goes through the laundry machine in our mind, and it becomes kosher. It becomes kosher all of a sudden. We find the Jewishness in it. I'm on this WhatsApp group, Torah Psych, it's going all day long about sources for all sorts of ideas and things like that. It's like literally all day long it's going on. Those people actually have to do something. It's like that's the strangeness of our generation. The strangeness of our generation is people are dying to be seen and attention. So people just post on the groups and some people post what? I thought the person was busy. I guess they're busy on WhatsApp all day long. It's such a funny thing, existing in the digital world. It's like this fragmented type of thing. It's this fragmentation. Right? It's a transitional generation, a generation that's in between worlds, but it's built on the ruins of the old one, Okay, continuing, okay? Now Rav Kook turns, in the next paragraph, he turns towards addressing us. This is amazing, Mike, right? This is incredible. Have you ever heard anything like this? Have you ever heard any Rav speak like this? Have you, Moshe? Yanish? Nothing. What? On WhatsApp. Right, on WhatsApp, It's like, I started this year, I didn't say this on the camera, I'll say this, but like, we were talking about there was some Rebbe my kids were reading about in some article someplace, so they, I was telling this to you. So they said to me, Avdi, they have a lot of followers, like on Instagram, on YouTube, like, what do you mean, like a lot of followers? I'm like, they don't have an Instagram account, they just, people actually know who Rav Chaim is, like he didn't actually use the internet, like what? Like, what is that? It's like the generation nowadays, like they have rabbis, and I'm like this in many ways also, like rabbis that I never met, like I just listen to their classes online, and I like listening to their class. I never spoke with them, I never talked with them, but yet you're able to be makabel their das. You're able to hear. So it's like the whole hierarchy of things. Like you have a guy a Rav that you listen to, or a shiur, and it's online, and you never met the person a day in your life. It's like, it's like such a funny thing. It's like this generation. It's like, so now you're glued to your phone because now you're watching it, or you're listening to it, or you're listening to it on double speed. So it's like it's an interesting thing.
1.5 speed.
1.5 speed, right? You have to know which ones you can listen on double and which ones 1.5. So Rav Kook is now going to turn directly to the generation and now speak to us. Hava nachin lo haderech. Come and let's prepare the way. Nira lo es hamava ha'ir. Let's show them the entrance to the city, right? Because it's not about forcing. It's not about being so strict. It's not about disciplining, but it's about entering, showing them the gate, showing them the pathway to the heart. Leman yuchal limtsoa es haPesach, in order that we can show them the entrance. Nodia lo sheyimsa mashu mevakesh dafka b'gvul Yisrael. You teach them and you show them what you're looking for. You could find specifically in Yiddishkeit. Not that this is against Yiddishkeit, but specifically in Yiddishkeit, you could find exactly what you're looking for. Achazti velo, and he brings a pasuk. Achazti velo arpena, right? I've grabbed on, and I will not let go. Ache vesias beis ami velchadar harasi, until I was brought into my mother's house, my parents' bedroom. Meaning to say, it's a pasuk in Shir Hashirim about the love relation between a husband and wife, which is saying that show the Yidden we want the most innermost, deepest thing, the parents' bedroom, an intimate relationship with Hashem, and show them how everything could be found in Yiddishkeit. Not just Hashem is only found in a base medrash. Not that this is chutz migvul. And hegach avicha el beis ami talmideni. And I will go to my parents' house, my mom's house, to learn. Eshkecha miyayin harekach ma'asis rumani. But I will drink this yayin rekach, this not good wine, ma'asis rumoni. What does ma'asis rumoni mean, Mike? Right, it's lo nashuk. Now listen to what he says, right? So the point is over here is that we need to show them the way. We need to open their hearts, and we need to show them that everything is dafka in the gvul of Israel. So I was thinking I'm not such a sports guy. I know a lot of guys are sports guys. I never was, I played a lot, captain of the hockey team. But I was never followed intensely. But some of my kids like to follow intensely. So my initial reaction is it's a waste of time, sports, come on, But then it's no, dafka get into it and show them this is in the gvul of Yisrael, right? This is you have to be strong, you have to have a orot and kalim, you have to have a good body, like Rav Kook writes in another place in orot, the working out of the youth is like the tehillim and the tzaddikim, he says, It's an amazing thing. Show dafka how the working out is actually part of Yiddishkeit. It's not just a gashmias thing. No, you need a strong body equals a strong soul. It's a mitzvah of a chai bahem, l'shmartem esnafshos heichem, right? Or a bunch of my kids love Mr. Beast, And they're watching Mr. Mr. Beast. I happen to like Mr. Beast too, And you're that's the muzarness of our generation, It's I like Mr. Beast, but it's stupidity, it's total waste of time, it's total batala, but you want to teach the kids. So they're talking about Mr. Beast. So I'm entertainment, relaxing, simcha, mili d'shtuta. It's part of Yiddishkeit. Knowing when to stop, Show them dafka how Mr. Beast is part of it. Whatever you're finding, I promise you, it's in the Gvul Yisrael. But when you start saying, this is outside our camp, We don't do that. This is outside our camp. So it feels strangling, you know? It feels strangling.
But there are things that are outside our camp.
Right, like what would you say?
I don't know. I mean, maybe not Mr. Beast, but maybe like. In other words, I think.
Mrs. Beast?
We're just saying that like this whole thing is really built into the system. Meaning it's not like an accident that we ended up here at this point in history, right?
Right.
So we're having like we're pulled between all sorts of like the spectrum of good on one side and the spectrum of like destructive on the other. But there still has to be like certain things that are off limits or right.
Right. So what
You can't pull everything in.
well, I think, right, so I'll state over here, what we're talking about is like, aren't there limits? Aren't there gvulim? Like something's got to be outside the camp of Yiddishkeit, you know? I don't know the answer. I wonder this myself. Like, there's some gray area over here. Like, is there, like, I think if you like, what he's going to say is like, when you're in Megala, the or Nakuda Panimi, you know, it's like, I don't have a good answer, but I'll tell you what my thoughts are, you know? It's like Gullus Judaism is like works so hard in order to set up huge parameters and barriers of this is us and that's them. They're Yidden and Goyim, you know? And you have to work so hard to maintain a Machane Kodesh. You have to work so hard in order, in Gullus of 2,000 years, of like, it's like, okay, this is the structure and like this is how we're going to do things exactly, right? And then you come to Eretz Yisrael and you're like, wait a minute, like, there's just a internal shift that takes place. It was like, wait a minute, I don't have to protect myself from the Goyim. Like, you know, it's just like it's hard to find the right words in order to describe this phenomenon, you know? But it's like technically everything could be a mitzvah here in Eretz Yisrael because you're inside the Kedushas Haaretz. So it's the Kedushas Haaretz that protects us, right? It's the pasuk says, "V'zacharti es brisi Yaakov, v'zacharsi es brisi Yitzchak, v'zacharsi es brisi Abraham, v'imlo es karena, v'imlo haaretz, right? V'imlo haaretz es kor, right? So remember the bris of Yitzchak, remember the bris of Yaakov, remember the bris of Abraham, but if not, v'haaretz es kor, right? So the Ema Banim Smecha says an amazing thing. First, Rashi says like this. The Ema Banim brings the Ema Banim Smecha, Rav Tachtal brings this Rashi on this pasuk, right? So what does he say? He says, we start from lowest to highest. So, because it's in reverse. Yaakov was lower than Yitzchak, and Yitzchak, right? So we start from lowest to highest. This is what Rashi says. And if none of the schus of the avos work, if Yaakov doesn't work, and if the schus of Yitzchak doesn't work, and if the schus of Avram doesn't work, the Aretz Eskor, the schus of Eretz Yisrael will protect us. Right? That's Rashi. The Ema Banim Smecha says that. The schus of the Aretz Eskor, the land will save us. The land itself will protect us. Means you come, first of all, it's incredible, you know, but you come to Eretz Yisrael, and Eretz Yisrael is the container for all the Jews. It holds us. It somehow keeps you in the fold. Like, we had this Russian worker putting together our closets who lives in Rishon. He's not Jewish. His name is Alex. And, like, he's leaving. He's like, good Shabbos. You know, he's like, Shabbat Shalom. You know, he's wishing me good Shabbos. You know? Like, and he knows all his kashrus, not to bring food into the house, and et cetera, you know. Not that you could buy not kosher. You can't even buy not kosher food here anyways. You know what I'm saying? Like, especially in Ramat Beit Shemesh, you can't buy not kosher food, you know? It's like, there's something about the land which becomes the holding space and the container for all the degradations, stripes of the Jewish people, about Aretz Eskor. So you come here and there's like this thing. It's like, if you're doing it with the right intention, you know, like, again, I don't know exactly where that gvul ends exactly. What, like if you want to go clubbing, you could have a women's party, you know, and you could have a women's party. You could have a non-ach DJ. You know, you don't have to go to Tel Aviv to a club. You know what I'm saying? Like, there is a kosher way.
I'm saying you're not really including everything in your umbrella here.
Well, I guess, you know, there's an individual I'm working with, you know, and he was living in the Five Clowns, and he just moved to Israel, and he's in his late 20s, you know, he's almost turning 30, and he was doing nothing there, and he decides he's going to move to Tel Aviv. He's not religious, he doesn't keep Shabbos, nothing at all, you know, and he hates Judaism, and he moved to Tel Aviv a few months ago, and now every Friday night he goes, I had a Shabbat meal, and he goes to shul, you know. I don't know, maybe he sings the Chadodi for a minute while he's there, it's a big social scene, and he says, we sit, I said, tell me what it's like, like, what is that like? He goes, we have Shabbat meal with all our friends, and there are girls, and there are guys there, and everyone's hanging out with each other. He goes, and someone makes Kiddush. He goes, and after the meal, everyone starts texting on their phones and doing, and like, I'm not saying it's a good thing, I'm not, what I'm saying, it's still not the full thing, but like, Israel brought him back into the fold. You know what I'm saying? Like, he'll definitely marry Jewish now. Like before, he was dating non-Jews. So there's something here that the Eretz Ezkor, there's something here that the land of Israel, it like brings you back in. Like, and Rav Kook is going to say, we're going to get to this. He says this could only happen in Israel, and we're not going to get to it tomorrow, but in a few paragraphs from now, he says, and this thing that we're talking about could only happen in Israel. Could only happen here. That there's a merging of the two. There's a synthesis and an integration between spiritual life and physical life. And Rav Kook talks about in other places, he talks about like tivai, like natural Judaism. Like wasn't meant to be this like heavy, intense type of thing of like anxiety, right? He says that there's two redeemers. There was Pinchas and Eliyahu, right? That Pinchas, he was like the strong redeemer, and Eliyahu was like the natural geula. Like the Shaya olam nata b'tocheinu, like the life of Hashem was planted inside of us. It's like you go to the mall, and now you could go to the food court. You know what I'm saying? That's how it's supposed to be. Or you go to the park, and it's coming Zman Mincha, or you're at the beach, whatever it is, and you get a minion. That's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be organic, natural, not this top-down, heavy type of thing. Okay. We're gonna end here. We'll continue this. Next week. But it's amazing, right? It's amazing that this could only take place here in the land of Israel, And he's just to foreallude a little bit. He's gonna say like what we need to do is not detract light from them, but we need to teach more light, not withhold Pneumius, but we need to teach more light. We need to give more deeper things, more Pneumius over to them. We need to bombard them with light. Okay, everyone. It's amazing, Anish. It's amazing.